Hello, and welcome to this video on the science of genetics. Over the next minutes, we will explore the fascinating world of genetics and dive into the basic principles that govern the inheritance of traits in living organisms. We will discuss DNA, genes, and heredity, and how these elements intertwine to create the unique characteristics that make up every individual. DNA, the blueprint of life. DNA, or deoxyribonucleic acid, is a molecule found in the cells of all living organisms. It serves as the blueprint for life, containing the genetic information necessary for the growth, development, reproduction, and functioning of an organism. DNA is made up of a long chain of nucleotides, which are the building blocks of the molecule. There are 4 types of nucleotides in DNA, each represented by a letter: A, adenine; T, thymine; C, cytosine; and G, guanine. The structure of DNA is a double helix, which resembles a twisted ladder. The rungs of the ladder are formed by pairs of nucleotides, with A always pairing with T, and C always pairing with G. This pairing is called base pairing, and is crucial for the stability of the DNA molecule. Genes, the units of heredity. A gene is a segment of DNA that contains the instructions for making a specific protein. Proteins are responsible for carrying out various functions in the cell, and they determine the traits of an individual, such as eye color, hair color, and height. The human genome contains approximately 20,000 to 25,000 protein-coding genes. Genes are inherited from our parents, with each parent contributing 1 copy of every gene. The combination of these 2 copies determines our traits. Some traits are determined by a single gene, while others are influenced by multiple genes and environmental factors. Alleles, variations of genes. Different versions of the same gene are called alleles. For example, the gene for eye color has several different alleles that determine whether an individual has blue, brown, or green eyes. Each person has 2 copies of each gene, 1 from each parent. The combination of the 2 alleles determines the individual's characteristic for that trait. Dominant and recessive alleles play a crucial role in the expression of traits. A dominant allele is one that will be expressed if present, while a recessive allele will only be expressed if 2 copies of the recessive allele are present. This concept is known as Mendelian inheritance, named after the Austrian monk Gregor Mendel, who was the first to discover the principles of heredity through his experiments with pea plants. The central dogma: DNA to RNA to protein. The process by which genetic information is transferred from DNA to protein is called the central dogma of molecular biology. It consists of 2 main steps: transcription and translation. 1. Transcription. During transcription, an enzyme called RNA polymerase reads the DNA template and synthesizes a molecule called messenger RNA, mRNA. 1. The mRNA is a single-stranded copy of the DNA that carries the genetic code to the cell's machinery for protein synthesis. 2. Translation. Translation occurs in cellular structures called ribosomes, where the mRNA is read and the genetic code is translated into a sequence of amino acids, which are the building blocks of proteins. 2. Transfer RNA, tRNA, molecules bring the correct amino acids to the ribosome, where they are joined together in the correct order to form a protein. Genetic variations and mutations. Variations in DNA sequences are the source of genetic diversity among individuals. These variations can occur in the form of single nucleotide changes, insertions, deletions, or duplications. Some variations are harmless and do not affect an individual's traits, while others can result in genetic disorders or diseases. Mutations are changes in the DNA sequence that can be caused by errors during DNA replication, exposure to radiation, or chemical agents. Some mutations can have beneficial effects and lead to the evolution of new traits, while others can be harmful or deadly. The effects of mutations depend on the specific gene and the type of mutation that has occurred. Heredity and genetic disorders. Genetic disorders are diseases or conditions that are caused by abnormalities in an individual's DNA. These disorders can be inherited from one or both parents or can result from new mutations in the individual's own DNA. There are many different types of genetic disorders, including single gene disorders, chromosomal disorders, and complex disorders. 1. Single gene disorders. These disorders result from mutations in a single gene and are usually inherited in a Mendelian fashion. 1. Examples include cystic fibrosis, sickle cell anemia, and Huntington's disease. 2. Chromosomal disorders. These disorders result from abnormalities in the structure or number of chromosomes. 2. Examples include Down syndrome, Turner syndrome, and Klinefelter syndrome. 3. Complex disorders. Complex disorders are a group of genetic disorders that are caused by a combination of genetic and environmental factors. 3. They are also known as multifactorial disorders or polygenic disorders. 3. Unlike single gene disorders, which are caused by mutations in a single gene, complex disorders are caused by variations in multiple genes. 3. These variations, called alleles, can interact with each other and with environmental factors to contribute to the development of the disorder. Examples of complex disorders include 1. Cardiovascular disease. This is a group of disorders that affect the heart and blood vessels. 1. Risk factors for cardiovascular disease include high blood pressure, high cholesterol, smoking, obesity, and a family history of the disease. 2. Diabetes. This is a disorder in which the body is unable to produce or properly use insulin, a hormone that regulates blood sugar levels. 2. Risk factors for diabetes include obesity, poor diet, inactivity, and a family history of the disease. 3. Cancer. This is a group of disorders that are characterized by the abnormal growth of cells. 3. Risk factors for cancer include exposure to radiation, tobacco smoke, and certain chemicals, as well as genetic factors. 4. Autism. This is a disorder that affects communication and social interaction. 4. The exact causes of autism are not well understood, but genetic factors are believed to play a role. 5. Schizophrenia. This is a disorder that affects perception, thinking, and behavior. 5. Like autism, the exact causes of schizophrenia are not well understood, but genetic factors are believed to play a role. Diagnosing and treating complex disorders can be challenging, as they are influenced by a combination of genetic and environmental factors. Researchers are working to better understand the underlying genetic mechanisms of these disorders, with the hope of developing more effective treatments and preventive measures. In conclusion, genetics is a fascinating field that helps us understand the fundamental principles of inheritance, heredity, and the origins of genetic disorders. Through the study of DNA, genes, and the central dogma of molecular biology, we can better comprehend the complexity of living organisms and the unique traits that make up every individual. While genetic variations and mutations contribute to genetic diversity and evolution, they can also lead to the development of genetic disorders, which can be challenging to diagnose and treat. Researchers continue to make progress in understanding the underlying genetic mechanisms of these disorders, with the hope of developing more effective treatments and preventive measures.